gonna waste any time, let's get straight into the video. This is episode 1 of a 5-part series, meaning there are going to be 5 episodes to this walkthrough on how to edit. Today we're gonna be going over CC lights and how they interact with the scene, spark effects, saber effects, content overfill, as well as some compositing techniques. Okay, so I haven't done one of these videos since I was like 10, but we're back and we're gonna look into how we made this composition here of the Star Wars video, or the War Star video. This is the final composition. These are all the layers, but in today's video we're gonna dive into the VFX. Starting off, and this is like the first kind of like intro composition full of pre-compositions that I made to start off the intro sequence for this video. So this scene right here has CC lights in it, actually a lot, and as you can see when I pan in the timeline forward and backwards how those CC lights work. This is all done in an adjustment layer. So right here, down here is my clip 3. This is my footage. Okay, post Alex here because he did not explain this very well. Also, this is the video you're currently watching composition. Pretty crazy, right? A lot of layers, a lot of things going on. Anyway, that's besides the point. Let's get straight back into After Effects. Okay, so like I was saying, this is the clip 3 right here, and the adjustment layer that I have above this has my CC light ray effects in it. So if I were to start this adjustment layer from scratch again in the CC lights, I would right click and get a new adjustment layer. I would then apply the CC light ray effect to that. Zoom in and bring this to the light source that you want to target, and we're just gonna do a quick manual 2D track of this. So start it on the first frame and put that center dot there. Press the stopwatch for the center, and then you can press U on your keyboard to see that specific property. Control Shift arrow key to the right moves it 10 frames forward. That's what I do as a shortcut. Then you want to move your center to the new position, and then just keep scrubbing through it like so. And doing that, having this keyboard shortcut saves so much time, by the way. Okay, so once you have most of your keyframes aligned how you want them, you might need to go through again and make it a little more accurate, but this seems pretty good for now. I would set the transfer mode to lighten so it doesn't add any more blown out whiteness to that light. Square for the shape, and then color from source, I have that off, and then I would mess with the radius and have that like 15, and then the softness up a lot. So then when I zoom out all the way, it looks like that. Now I would have this tracked a little bit better. I only have it spaced out every like 10 keyframes or so, but for the actual video it is definitely more aligned properly. And these aren't the exact settings, but this is pretty close to what it looks like. I think I might have that softness a little higher up. So yeah, that's basically how you track that on there. And for the CC light of this light, I had it differently. All I did here was manually track it the same way we just did, but I wouldn't have the color from source not checked. Since the center of these lights I have stood up here isn't visible in the video, I mean this one isn't, I have that setting turned off so the light kind of shines in the direction it's pointing. Okay, and post Alex is done talking. Okay, now this scene is an instance where CC lights get a little bit more complicated. So as you can see, the the light pole where I'm at, it's shown a very little bit, but it still needs to act like this one, which still needs to have the blue CC on it. So how I got around that is making myself a roto. So I am physically in front of the blue light right there. That is me without the roto. That's with the roto. I'm just gonna do a quick example of this. So if I act like I'm gonna roto this for the first time again, then what I did is I just gone in here in the roto brush, and you have to just include the areas you want and then red out the areas you don't want. And since this is such a low light level scene, basically this whole film it's very hard to do rotoing, simply because in low light conditions there's not enough contrast between my cloak and the sky behind it. They're simply both almost identically the same color, so it has a hard time grabbing the pixels around where the shape of my cloak is. For rotoing out the white is a lot easier because there's a clear contrast distinction between the background and the foreground. So the CC light is on this side. Basically roto it, then you would play it, and then it would use what it learned about the previous frame to roto the next frame. And you gotta do like my hand's cut off here, so roto more the hand. That's just the example there, but back in the main composition, this is already rotoed out here. This is roto out. If I actually just solo it, you can see the roto on the black screen. Place the roto on top right here, place it on top of the lights, go into the light setting, and basically just track it normally, how you tracked it the first time. Just pretend the roto isn't there. You kind of have to use your imagination a little bit to get it kind of where it lines up, you know, with the light. Where you think it is, I mean. The camera doesn't move a whole lot, so it wasn't that difficult. And then place your roto in front of it. Now, you're gonna be like,
this looks fake as hell because the contrast doesn't match the rest of the scene. And I don't know what to do because it's just way too dark.
okay, just a simple fix. And all it is just a little bit of tint to the footage. Sometimes there are hard edges. I don't even think I counted for that. Probably a little rough on the roto there. Tint effect. And how I did the tint effect, I mapped the black, which is basically my whole outfit. I matched that to what the light was giving off, which probably around here somewhere, and the white just to white. A situation that I would do something different in is this one. So he flings this lightsaber. There's a couple of frames right there where he covers the CC light. Instead of rotoscoping him out, I instead went to the warp softness and I increased it so it spread out over the scene more. And then after his hand went over, I turned it back down to the original 100 level. Now, the reason I did warp softness and not intensity, the reason I didn't do that is because if I did that and then went it back to 100 again, then literally the entire scene would go without that blue light. So for a second, that light disappears, but having the softness instead, that light remains, but it's just spread out over a greater distance. Okay, so the next effect is the saber on the lightsabers themselves. So without the lightsaber, it's, you know, it's just a normal lightsaber, but we have the effect on there. There's energy around it. The core is brighter. It glows. So let's look at how we did that. I'm going to delete everything. Delete all the saber effects I already had on there. So start from scratch. We'll go to new. We'll make a solid. We'll do saber B. So that'll be blue. I'll change it to blue so it matches. First thing you want to do is set the blending mode to screen. If you don't see that, then this is the button you click to toggle between the different switches and modes. After that, you just want to add the saber effect to that layer you just made. Edit the different core pieces. So core start, core end, match that to your lightsaber. And there's a bunch of presets they have. I mean, you can make like a haze, kryptonite. I mean, there's a bunch of different whatever you want to do. It went for a purple lightsaber, but I mean, you know, it's been a while messing with these different parameters. You know, messing with the flicker, you know, core size, you know, you can have the start have more width compared to the end. You can have an offset, so we don't like, if you want to do a transition or something, you can have it kind of offset up and down, whatever. That's actually how I did the initiating lightsaber sequences. I messed with that core offset and just keyframed it. But this is what I did for the actual saber. I made a preset that already has this stuff. So this is the one I used for the actual video. All I would do is take this core start, core end pieces, press these little timers up here, press U on your keyboard to access those specifically that you just did, move a couple frames, you know, add them on to the next, move a couple frames, add them on to the next, and then go on and go so forth. But you definitely have to fill in these gaps and make it seamless to do that. Okay, so another way I did the saber effect was actually doing a 2D track, applying that 2D track to null objects, pick whipping the null objects to different cores on the saber. Process is the same as usual, but except you don't manually track it. Instead, I'm going to just take away these core parts for the blue. I'm going to make a new null object. And a null object is basically just, I mean, it's mostly used for tracking data as kind of like a third party to pick whip something, pick whip transform properties to another layer, pick whip rotation, position, perspective. I mean, whatever you want to pick whip that's what it's used for. I'm gonna duplicate the layer. I'm gonna make it green so it matches the rest. I'm gonna name it core B end. And then I'll rename this one where we start. Start would be my starting core, and to be the ending core. So next, you're gonna highlight the source, the source. So I'm gonna go to tracker and track the motion. Place a track point. Now I'm only doing a transform track. I'm not messing with rotation or scale. This lightsaber effect does not need that. I'm going to take this. I'm gonna start with the end. So I'm actually just gonna do a little clip here of it. So once I have it set on to where I need it, I'm actually going to probably make this box a little bigger. Now this box here, this is like the bounding box, where it's like the search area for your 2D track. The inner box is basically the region of what is being tracked. Okay, so once you have your track point, you know, situated where you want it. Click analyze frame forward. And if it doesn't line up right, then you just kind of... I've heard people say this is actually very accurate. And it honestly sometimes isn't. Sometimes it is. It's very situational. I maybe haven't just used it enough to know that yet. There, so you have the track. You have your start track. Now you're going to apply that. I'm going to make my motion target the end, since this is the end of the lightsaber. Apply that to that. And then the next thing I would do is I would just do the same thing for B start. Do the same thing for the start core. Okay, I just did a couple frames here. I would then apply that to core B start. Right there. Okay, so now you have both your core B start and your core B end. Press P on your keyboard to look at the position properties, and you can see that these keyframes are the tracks you just made. Okay, then you're gonna go to your saber effect, and you're going to press Alt on your keyboard, press Start. Then this little drop-down menu is going to come here. You want to get the expression pick whip tool, drag it up to your core B start. Boom. Do the same exact thing for your end, and there you have it tracked. Now I didn't do it that good. I need to line it up properly, but as you can tell, it's tracking. That is how I did that for actually most of the scenes, especially the longer scenes that took more whatever. But this is definitely a long process, and you're doing this for like 5 hours a day, and all you're doing is making tracking points, and then you're wondering where you're going to light. The next thing is the spark effect. These spark effects come with the lightsaber upon impact. How did this happen? How do we do this? It is the CC particle world effect. There's multiple effects to amplify the spark effect, if that makes sense. There's actually a lot more that goes into this, especially because this scene is moving, and actually me and him switch places in terms of, you know, what's in the foreground, what's in the background. So there's a lot of tricks actually used in this scene specifically. So let's just say I'm starting from scratch on the... Actually, let's just do the second one right here. This spark effect starts here. I'll get rid of it. Also, another thing, once your comp gets to be a little slow, you want to go and purge your memory and disk cache. As you can see, I have 70 gigabytes. I've increased it that much from the original setting, but 70 gigabytes of cache, you want to clear that. That's all your cache previews for when you preview your video. Okay, and I'm also going to drop the quality down to half because there is a lot of things going on in this scene. But basically, on this hit, we'll make a new solid. We'll just do hit. This is the second hit of this scene, so I'll just do hit 2. And actually, I'm going to make 2 copies of that, and you'll know why later. I'm going to rename it Spark Hit, and this is going to be 2 back, and then this one will be Spark Hit 2 front. And let me just take these off so you can see what's going on. And actually, both of these are rotored out already for this scene, and the floor map of the sparks that bounce, that's also a reason why I had to roto this out. And I will go more in depth on floor maps and how sparks are linked to that in the next video, and that's going to be part 2. That gave off a way more realistic effect in terms of sparks just fading out midair. We'll hit saber, like, say, like, right there. So I'm only make a marker just so I know where that's at. Control Shift plus D splits the clip. Backspace. Actually, I'm going to start a little behind too so that I can get started. I'm going to add the CC particle world effect. As you can see, there are particles on the screen now. Also, this plugin is FX Console. If you don't have that plugin, just go over here to the effects and presets and just get, you know, whatever effect you need. I just have that plugin because it saves time. We have this right here. I went ahead and messed with the parameters already and made a preset. This is the spark effect here, and I'm just gonna solo it so you can see it on the black background. This is just by itself the preset I made. What I usually do is I think for the most of the hits were like a 25 to 30 birth rate. I just keyframed it down so that, you know, the effect will stop at some point. Next thing I did was position it. You know, I have to position it to where it's actually on the lightsaber hit. Also, make motion blur a thing. So there's motion blur, so it looks like lines, not just little dots going everywhere. Physics, I usually did fractal omni, but I mixed it around a little bit so every hit didn't look the same. Velocity 1, gravity 0, so it falls a little slower. When I messed with floor maps, I would mess with the floor position, but this one I have it to none. So this is where the particles are really lines. In here, this is just birth size. They start out bigger. Death size is they come out smaller. Obviously, size variation to just influence the randomness of each individual spark. 100% for every spark's gonna look the exact same. Opacity 75%, and actually I have opacity map. So this is the, think of this as like the lifespan of the spark. It's gonna go have a high opacity, low opacity. It's kind of gonna flicker. That's kind of the sense. This is why it's like that, and then at the very end it's just gonna die off. Yeah, that's honestly the basics of the different effects. As you can tell, these sparks are they're very dull. There's not a lot of color. There's not even a lot of, it's mostly faded out. There's not a lot of vibrance. So that's where glow and VC color vibrance come into play. This is also a Video Copilot effect and a plugin. So you won't, I think actually this one's free. This one's free, so you can get this as long as FX Console is also free as well. Just like this. Glow is going to enhance, you know, the blues coming out of those sparks. I just set the threshold 82%, so you know, if you set to 0, then there's nothing. It's just way too blown out. This is honestly subjective. There's not really a right or wrong way to go about this. I just did what I thought looked the most realistic and matched my scene. But you can mess with the different parameters that are different than mine. So glow is gonna bring it out those blues more, but VC color vibrance really gonna bring it out. Turbulent displace as well. So it shifts a little bit, goes in different directions, and I just keyframe the evolution so it's different all the time. So that's the spark effect. That's, you know, spark, glow, turbulent displace. Okay, I was wondering why I had the black screen. It's just because I forgot to turn the blending mode to screen. Set to screen. Okay, so this is way too many sparks, so I'm gonna go down into the birth rate. I'm going to make this lower. I'm actually gonna make this 15. That looks a little better. I'm gonna move this there. Okay, so then this hits and looking pretty good. They do fade out pretty early, so that's when I'll mess with the longevity, maybe like 1.5. This is when I normally have a floor map. Since it's behind everything, floor map, so the sparks would go and kind of lay on the ground for a little bit, and then it will disappear. Then it'll disappear after that. Okay, the next thing that I had to do in every scene, literally every scene, is content aware fill. And that's because the camera lens, this was shot on my phone in Blackmagic app where I can control all the camera settings. I guess when it interacts with these lights, I don't know, maybe it's just these lights I have, I don't know. It made a glare, which I'll show you. It's like a little light fragmentation almost. So if I actually just solo that, this is what's the fill layer I created with content aware fill. If I didn't do that, there would be a light remnant there, which would look something like that. And that just moves around. And there's some scenes like where it's very annoying. You can definitely tell in this scene. So all I did was track it with a pen tool. This is a scene that shows, you know, when it gets kind of really bad of this light glare. And I didn't know actually about this before I started recording, and this took a lot of time. This was probably like 40% of what I was doing, and it's not even noticeable. And actually one of them was done for the gun because it had an orange chip, so I had to edit that out of there and make it black to fit the rest of the gun. Set the blending mode to none. Set the blending mode to none. Fair. I mean, you literally cannot miss it. It's pretty bad. So I just took a pen tool and I just selected my clip, pen tooled around it right here. I would come down here, set the blending mode to none actually. Keyframe mask path, skip forward, move it, you know, mess with the angle or whatever so it fits it not too much, and then this would go on for the entire scene. Okay, very rough draft here, but then you'll go to the mask, then set it to subtract, go to content aware fill. Also, side note, if you do not see any of these different windows on the right hand side, window up here, and then you hit the content aware fill just so you can have it. You want to set alpha expansion to increase your pen. If I did too much of an enclosed pen cutout, then I'll definitely make this a big number, but it's pretty accurate, so I'll do like 2. Object is the best fill method, honestly, for most things. These have their purposes and their time, but I actually use object for all of it, all of the content aware fill I did. Whatever range, work area, generate. So it's going to do its thing and generate, but it's not going to go away completely, because if you really do an analyze, like frame by frame analyzation, you'll literally you can see that it's still there. But for the most part, watching it, it's fine. But there are some scenes that have a lot of content and refill problems, especially when there's a lot of motion blur, movement going on, and it covers an actor, or it covers the foreground, you know, switches from the background to the foreground, whole different color palette. So that's when you have to create reference frames. So for this instance, I create reference frames. Let me just hide all that, and then set the blending mode down here to none, so you can actually see the light. So that's what was going on here. Right there is where a lot of different movement happens and color. So what I did is make a reference frame. I think you actually need to set subtract for this. Create reference frame. It's going to open up Photoshop, and this is where you manually clone out this frame in a still picture. So then your next frames for reference have something to go off of as a basis. So you would open this up, get your clone stamp tool, Alt, click the surrounding pixels, and you just kind of like paint and make it look pretty, you know, accurate. Okay, and then once that's somewhat good, this isn't the best, Control S, and then it's gonna transfer over here. And if it doesn't, then you're gonna have to purge just the memory this time. And that's going to put this back to where in After Effects, so we can see it, because Photoshop and After Effects are dynamically linked because of that reference frame. And then you would set your work area to, you know, the remainder of whatever frames you need to do, and then you would just generate those from there. But those reference frames will help, and if it does something like that, that's probably why I created just one frame here, so it can just do one analyzation. I actually probably put that over here so we can go off the reference frame. But content and refill is not perfect in itself, and that's why in one scene I use a different method. Okay, so this scene is where I use compositing as a tool to eliminate the light fragment instead of content or fill. I still use fill, but I kind of use both. I use content or fill. I also use compositing. As you can tell, this is where it comes in. It's behind my shoulder. If I take away that is a light fragment. But content aware fill had a lot of problems when we got to this area right here, where it went over my shoulder to then behind my shoulder. So what I did for this was I got a clean plate of just the background without this light here. So I mean, I probably went somewhere around here. When it came over behind my shoulder, or actually part of it was on my shoulder, part of it was off the shoulder, I then took these two things, which was a clean plate, kind of just a blur of the background, still image, clean plate. Then I took, I think this is a smoke effect only within here, so that matches the smoke, you know, over here, because it's just gonna look static if you don't have that second layer of, you know, fake smoke coming in with the real smoke. And then I wrote it out a little piece of my shoulder for the just so it blends in and this little blur isn't over the foreground. And I also added this second roto, which is just a bigger roto of the first roto. So it's like a dual roto. But at the same time, scene changed a lot, and I had to map out the tint effect. How I did that was I matched the colors. So the black was just black, and then, you know, I had the white mapped to more like probably this color right here, this kind of dark turquoise color, and then just base off the lighting. As you can see, it's dark right here, it gets really bright right here. So I just keyframed the tint to where it matched the scene. So that is about it when it came to compositing. But once I matched those, the next part was tracking data for actually everything. So there was tracking data for the cloth piece of my roto, of this piece. That track was done actually off my eyeball because it was part of me. And then the track for the roto was done here in the background. So this was not moving with my body, this is moving with the camera movement on where there's high contrast. So this actually worked out pretty good on the corner of the shed there. But that's it for this video. Hopefully y'all liked it. If you haven't checked out the War Star video, I highly suggest go watch it. Come back to these tutorials and maybe you can learn something new on how this whole project was created. And with that being said, I'll see y'all at part 2.